So the days of spring training are numbered, and speaking of numbers, Stat Masterson himself, Alex Speier of the Boston Globe, is here to hand out some preseason superlatives. Are you ready? I need you to kind of channel your inner middle schooler here and go back to your yearbook days.
So I can't just be comparative, I have to be superlative? Let's do it!
All right, love it. Best newcomer so far through spring training up to this point.
I'm going to go with Kike Hernandez, and the reason is that the Red Sox are throwing everything on his plate, and I guess on his plates because he's a guy who tends to dish on a lot of plateware with a lot of silverware. You know, he's moving all over the field. He's been nothing but impressive defensively. They've installed him at the top of the lineup, and to me, one of the most significant things for the Red Sox is that he was one of the few veteran hitters with a project, which was control the strike zone. You know, don't expand. Show that you can be an on-base guy. Show that you can be a disciplined enough hitter to be in the leadoff spot. And he's done that thus far in the spring with more walks than strikeouts. And, you know, you can obviously spring training means very little in terms of performance, but he had a challenge and he responded to it.
All right, best bounce back candidate.
Best bounce back candidate. I am going to go with JD Martinez, not because of anything we've seen in spring training, but just because of who he is. JD hasn't had a very good spring training, quite honestly. The strikeout to walk totals are pretty lopsided in a bad way for him, given the amount of swing and miss that he had on fastballs last year. And that total has been high. But at a certain point, you just have to trust who the guy has been since 2014. And, you know, over a 6-year span, that was a hitter who was as good as self-diagnosing and dominating as just about any in the majors. So I would say you would identify him as that bounce back guy based just on that. And with the caveat that the more significant bounce back is Eduardo Rodriguez, who's looked fantastic all spring. And that is a bounce back that exceeds just coming back from a bad season on the field.
Yeah, I know JD said recently he's ready to put like 2020 like way behind him. Most to prove in the remaining games here in the spring. Who's got the most to prove?
Yeah, I think that I would say, in a way, no one, because it's spring training and the Red Sox have a pretty good sense of what they want to do. But I would say that in terms of the person you'd like to see performing a little bit better, that would probably be Rafael Devers, who's just looked out of sync thus far in the spring, both in terms of his defensive timing and certainly at the plate in terms of his pitch selection. He's a guy who, you know, because of his bat speed and his free swinging approach, you'd usually expect him to dominate in spring training, and he's been a little bit all over the place. So I'd say that for the Red Sox, they'd probably like to see him lock in and tighten things up a little bit before they head north.
Alex, who would you say is the biggest surprise?
I would say that Michael Chavis has looked terrific thus far this spring, in a way that has been somewhat surprising, just given that he's struggled over the last couple of years, and you know it requires a certain degree of frankly resilience and mental fortitude to be able to come in and just present really well. So I think that Chavis's 6 home run performance certainly deserves mention as one of the biggest surprises of camp. Garrett Whitlock too, because that's a Rule 5 guy coming in from out of nowhere, who's kind of competing at the highest level he's ever competed at, and he is showing stuff that will allow him to get guys out in the regular season. Most
likely to be named closer by Alex Cora.
I'm going with Matt Barnes. He was the guy who finished in that role last year. The Red Sox have a little bit of built-in trust in him, granted in a relatively limited sample size. And I think that Adam Ottavino has shown seems fine with the idea of closing, but also seems fine with the idea of not closing. So I'm going with Barnes as the incumbent.
All right, Alex Speier, good catching up with you, man. Thanks for hanging out with us on NESN After Hours.
Well, you are the greatest. That's my final superlative of the night.
Listen, man, I've let down everyone who wrote "Stay cool" in my middle school yearbook, okay?
The coolest.